So Apple just had their annual iPhone announcement event, and they did it again. They said they released the best iPhone they've ever made. I thought one of these years they'd be like, you know what, this year just didn't do it. It's actually worse than last year's. But no, every year. Anyway, joking aside, I thought we could go through an abridged version of all the announcements, try to focus on really just the cool stuff, the new stuff. So let's just get into it. They started off with the Apple Watch Series 10. It's a new one, 30% more screen area, brighter screen, and apparently 40% brighter screen at certain angles. That's pretty good. Also, it has sleep apnea detection and water depth sensors, stuff like that. So always nice to have more sensors. It sucks that it still does not have the oxygen sensor. Like they had to remove that for legal reasons. And that would have been like one of the few reasons I actually used it. So probably not going to get this one personally. They also announced new AirPods, regular base, not Pro versions. So it's the AirPods 4. And these, of course, have better sound quality, as you would expect. It also has features like personalized spatial audio, which I think was actually already a thing in the Pro. And they're also adding features to like shake your head to respond to Siri, that sort of thing. And also the USB charging case is now USB-C and a bit smaller. However, one notable thing is they're releasing another version of the AirPods 4 model that is like between the AirPods 4 and the Pro 2. And basically, it's just the open ear design of the AirPods 4, but it also has some features from the AirPods Pro, like active noise cancellation is the biggest one. And then that includes a lot of the related features, such as transparency mode, adaptive audio, conversational awareness. So like if you're talking to someone without taking out your AirPods like a jerk, then it lowers the volume for you while you're talking. And these are going to be $129 for the base model and then $179 for the one with the active noise cancellation. So kind of in between the Pro and the regular. However, even though there's not new AirPods Pro, the current Gen 2 actually is getting new features starting soon. This includes hearing protection by default. So I guess if it's like extremely loud, it'll reduce some of the more intermittent, highest intensity sounds. And also one of the ones that I found most intriguing is the hearing test that apparently is like clinically approved or whatever, like it's legit. And I guess that would be kind of cool to just kind of see if you have any gaps in your hearing over time and if it gets worse. Also for people who are actually hard of hearing, they're going to have a apparently clinical grade hearing aid feature. So you can actually use like AirPods as a hearing aid. So that's pretty neat. Maybe for people who, their hearing loss isn't bad enough to get proper hearing aids, but they still want to have that option in certain situations, something like that. All right, so now we can get to the part that most people actually care about, the iPhone 16 and then the Pro. They said the new models are going to have a new formulation for the ceramic shield screen glass that apparently is 50% better or tougher than previous. Screen brightness is the same as before, 2000 nits. But actually what I found interesting, believe it or not, is the minimum brightness on all of them, the 16 and 16 Pro, is now 1 nit. And that means that like if you're looking at your phone at night, you're not going to necessarily get as blinded even if you turn your phone brightness all the way down. Yes, you can always use the reduce white point, but it's kind of a pain. Anyway, I used a light meter on my phone to test the minimum brightness currently on a white screen, and it was like 2.5 nits, so it's a pretty good reduction. Here's another feature I'm really excited about, and this is even on the 16, not just the Pro, and that is a new button, a camera control button. So this is different than the action button. It's effectively a dedicated camera button. You press it, it'll bring up the camera. You can press it again to take a photo immediately or hold it down for video. And also, I guess the idea is you press it to be able to use the Apple visual intelligence. We're going to get to that, but like the AI stuff, it'll make it easier to access that. And I think this is actually really cool. I've been really waiting for like an actual dedicated camera button. Didn't really expect them to ever do that, but there's plenty of times where I want to take a photo of something real quick. And even if you have like a shortcut on your home screen, it just takes extra time. Sometimes you really miss some funny thing happening. Also for the 16 models, they're actually skipping from the A16 processor to the A18. So the A18 Pro is actually what the Pro models are going to have. So it's not the same exact processor, but still it's a nice jump. And that probably is because they want the latest AI features and stuff that the A18 is going to have for this Apple Intelligence stuff. So speaking of the AI stuff, one thing they talked about is the generative writing feature everywhere. You can have it like rewrite some note or email or something. I don't know if I'm really going to use that. I don't really like the way that AI writes. It's very obviously AI, but I mean, it's there if you really want it. Maybe to like fix spelling errors and stuff you could do. They also have a thing where it's going to be able to create emojis, and I hope it's going to be like in Apple style and not like just general emojis, because current large language models, AI image generators, are really not good at emojis. They look pretty bad, so if they actually look like Apple emojis, that'd be kind of neat. But really the little stuff is most exciting to me, such as being able to ask Siri or the Apple Intelligence like to find a photo that you took ages ago or a meme or something. I have spent a lot of time doing that. That would actually be a huge deal for me. Like, find this photo where it was at this place, or it's of this thing and I can't exactly describe it. I don't remember exactly when it was, and it'll actually be able to do it. Another interesting thing is it'll be able to use the AI to, instead of, I am assuming optionally, for notifications and also email, instead of like showing a preview of the text, it can give like an actual summary. And of course, with all this AI stuff, Siri is finally getting an upgrade. I think it's going to be basically powered by ChatGPT. It's not even their own thing, but Siri was like borderline useless for the longest time. These days, I literally only use it to maybe set a reminder, and even then, half the time, it like misunderstands half the thing I said, and I just have to kind of remember what I meant to say. It's so bad. So this will be a nice welcome. And Siri's going to have access to what they're calling personal context. Basically just stuff you've been doing on your phone. I guess it keeps track of that. Or it'll be able to search through a bunch of data. For example, one thing they said was like if you ask it to find a recommendation that's in your text messages, I know that's going to be a huge thing for me as well. You know, the group chat where the boys are spamming text and you're trying to find something you said a month ago and it's like impossible to find exactly what you're talking about if you don't know the exact keyword to search for. You just know like generally what it was about. So that's going to be a big help, I think, for a lot of people. Also, like I mentioned before with the visual Apple Intelligence, you're going to be able to use that camera button and have it take a picture and like ask it what's going on here. One example they gave was like a bicycle that you might want to buy or something, but also they said if you wanted to like take a picture of a restaurant you're walking by, it'll be able to like use the location data and give you info about that restaurant, the menu, stuff like that. Pretty cool. Now, as for camera specific stuff, this is usually one of my favorite sections. I already mentioned, obviously, the camera control button is what they're calling it. And there's actually a slightly new interface. I don't know if it completely replaces what it was before, but it like lets you use the control button to like slide and swipe to maybe zoom in, stuff like that. So you can see what it looks like here. Also, the iPhone 16, it's still gonna have the 48 megapixel main camera like before, but now it's the Fusion version. I guess it's just like maybe an upgrade. They say that it'll have the ability to do basically a 24 megapixel image instead of the 48 or 12. It's like a balance between low light. There's no third telephoto lens. They say it's a 2x telephoto zoom. It's just cropping in with the 48 megapixels. I really don't like how they say like, oh, optical quality 2x. Like, no, it's not optical, it's a crop. Anyway, it's also going to be able to take a spatial video and spatial audio to use with the Vision Pro if you happen to have one of those in the future. And also it's going to apparently have built-in like noise reduction improvements. Like if you're out on a windy day, it'll be able to do that. Now, one software feature that I'm really excited about is like the removal of distractions. You can like use a magic eraser type thing that the Pixel has and other Android phones. I'm surprised they didn't have this before. As for more miscellaneous features, they did briefly a section on gaming where they say that thanks to heat dissipation, apparently you'll be able to get like 30% more efficiency with sustained load than before. Also, supposedly it's a actually bigger battery, not just like improved efficiency or whatever. And on the website, it looks like it's maybe about 10% better video playback, 22 hours versus 20 for the previous. Although, interestingly, it says the audio playback time's the same, so I don't know what the deal is there. One really interesting thing they talked about is SOS live video. So like if you need emergency services and you have the signal, presumably, you can like show them an actual video of what's going on. That's kind of cool. And then also very cool, this is actually not just exclusive to the 16, but also 14 and 15 is messages via satellite is going to be rolling out. So like you'll be able to actually do satellite messaging, not just in an emergency situation, but to like regular people if you have a no cell signal. That's pretty awesome. And then finally onto the 16 Pro and Pro Max. I personally am going to get the 16 Pro. I have a 14 Pro now. And so interestingly, it's going to be a larger screen thanks to thinner bezels. It's going to be 6.3 and 6.9 inches for the regular and the Max versus previously 6.1 and 6.7. They also said that it's going to have the best iPhone battery life ever. And looking at the website, it looks like the 16 Pro is going to have 27 hours video playback versus the previous 23 hours. That's 15% better. That is a pretty big jump. They talked more about Apple Intelligence. They gave an example of having a summary of meeting notes, I guess if you use like the voice memo thing. Also, the 16 Pro is getting a 48 megapixel wide camera angle. That's always nice. Before it was just the main camera. Still no 48 megapixel on the telephoto. I'm assuming they're keeping that one in the chamber for like the next year or whatever. However, now the 16 Pro, not just the Pro Max, also has the 5x tetraprism zoom. Also now with the Pros, you can do 4K 120 FPS and even in RAW and log if you'd use an external recorder. One interesting feature in software is the audio mix. So it'll be able to probably use AI to determine who's talking and separate that from like the background noise at different levels. You'll be able to like select that. One nice thing is that besides the screen size and battery, obviously, the 16 Pro and Pro Max seem to have the same exact features, which is great for me because I don't like the huge one. I like the regular size of the Pro. Now, a couple random things I noticed. Apple Intelligence is actually going to be coming to the 15 Pro model, so the previous years, but not the regular 15. Though I'm not sure if it's going to be like all the features, like the visual intelligence, that sort of thing. Also, really stupid, USB 3.0 is still only on the Pro models. They're still doing ancient USB 2.0 on the base model iPhone 16. Now, yeah, USB 2.0 is fine for stuff that doesn't need a lot of data transfer, but it's a phone. There's not any reason to restrict that. Anyway, overall, I actually am pretty impressed. I like hardware changes, like with the actual new button. I think that's pretty cool. So I think this is a worthy upgrade if you've been waiting a long time to upgrade. This probably is a decent one to get. I'm definitely going to be getting one. And a lot of people say, oh, AI, it's just like a gimmick. I actually think this is going to come in handy, and I think people are going to find that it's more useful than they might initially realize. Though, of course, it's really going to depend on what kind of info the model has access to. Obviously, it's going to have like the messages, but will it have access to third-party data? Like you can ask it, oh, in this app, where's my note? That sort of thing. That'd be helpful. Honestly, just the fact that you can ask it to search through previous messages and find stuff without using like an exact term, that is going to save me a lot of time in itself. But I would be interested to know what you guys think. Are you going to be getting an iPhone, or maybe you just use Android? This is not impressive. And if you do have iPhone, are you going to upgrade? And what version are you coming from? We could talk about that all down there. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, give it a light tap on the like button. Don't press it too hard. You don't want to break the screen. And if you want to keep watching, next I'd recommend a video where I talked about a script in PowerShell for Windows that I created called Super God Mode that gives you a bunch of shortcuts and stuff. You'll have to see what I'm talking about. It's pretty cool. I'll put that link right there you can click on. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.